I always wondered if the walls of this house remembered me better than the people inside. As I stepped through the golden archways of my family's estate, faces glowing under crystal chandeliers, laughter echoing across the marble floors, I felt it again. The hollow chill of being both present and unseen. Every hug missed me, every smile slipped past. My brother Luke stood at the centre of it all, surrounded by a proud crowd, the reason for tonight's grand celebration, his promotion, his moment, his world. I was just passing through. My aunt's voice drifted behind my back, not meant for me, but sharp enough to slice. "It's almost like Rachel was never part of this family," she whispered, her words carried on the breeze of polite applause. I felt my hands tense at my sides. Some wounds fester in silence, especially when your silence is what they need to keep the party going. And in a flash of the night ahead, I saw myself walking away alone, the party lights fading behind me, my phone buzzing with messages I no longer wanted to read. Sometimes I wondered, have you ever felt like a ghost in your own home? If you've ever felt invisible among your own family, or kept silent when you should have spoken, comment below with a "Don't forget to subscribe to Whispers of Revenge for more stories where the quietest voices carry the loudest truths. I wasn't always invisible. Once my name carried weight in this house, back when grades and scholarships still meant more than champagne toasts and country club invitations. The Ford family, old money, polished manners, secrets tucked under dinner napkins. My father, the architect of both buildings and reputations, believed image was everything. My mother, always dressed for a magazine cover, mastered the art of saying nothing with a smile. And in the middle of it all, Luke, my younger brother, my parents' pride, their golden son, bathed in attention I never learned to need. I was the eldest, the first to achieve, the one who studied by the window late into the night, top of my class at Columbia Law, the daughter everyone boasted about until the day I saw what I wasn't supposed to see. The first time Luke bent the rules, I confronted him. I thought telling the truth would save us all. Instead, it marked my exile. Mum's voice, brittle and cold, replayed in my mind. "Just remember, tonight is about Luke, not you." It always was. I learned quickly how easily a family could rewrite history. In every story told at holiday tables, Luke's mistakes became harmless jokes. My objections became bitterness, my absence became a relief. Flashbacks haunt me. Childhood evenings when I'd take the blame so Luke could keep his halo untarnished, standing silent as he smirked behind our parents' backs. Even now, as I walk into the glow of the ballroom, I feel those same old bruises, dull, invisible, impossible to show. New York became my sanctuary. I built a new life there, forged my reputation case by case, a legal consultant with clients who listened when I spoke. But some nights the city lights blurred and I'd remember the suffocating silence of my childhood home. No matter how far I ran, the echo of my family's disappointment followed. My phone buzzed in my clutch, jolting me back. Zoe's name flashed on the screen, my anchor, my only real family. I stepped aside and answered. Her voice was warm, steady. "You sure you want to walk into the lion's den, Rach?" she asked. I hesitated, looking at the sea of perfect strangers who shared my blood. "Not really," I whispered, "but some ghosts are worth facing." The doors opened wider, the lights grew harsher, and I forced myself forward. The party was just beginning. Some truths rot in the roots, long before the tree falls. The night's music melted into the sound of clinking glasses, voices swelling and fading as I moved through the room. I became an expert at reading spaces, how the hush grew sharper when I entered, how the smiles stretched a little too wide before sliding off completely. Every corner seemed to whisper my old failures back at me. It was nearly 3 years ago when I learned what Luke had done. He was reckless, embezzling funds from the family's foundation, funneling money into half-baked investments, playing king with someone else's crown. I thought if I confronted him privately, he'd come clean. But secrets in this family didn't evaporate, they metastasized. When I threatened to bring it to my father, he pleaded. He said he'd fix it. He swore it would never happen again. I gave him a week. In the end, it was my mother who summoned me to her room. Her voice trembled with icy resolve. "Rachel, think of the family. If this gets out, you'll ruin us all." The conversation left a wound that would never close. The next morning, Luke was cleared. I was cast as the bitter accuser, the problem child. My father couldn't look me in the eye for months. My achievements were quietly erased. My law degree, my awards, my name never spoken with pride again. I tried to disappear, but some ghosts are stubborn. Last month, out of the blue, I received a cryptic email from an old associate in New York. No greeting, no signature, just a single line. "Luke hasn't changed. Protect yourself." It landed in my inbox like a warning shot. I knew then I had to come back, not to forgive, but to see for myself what had festered in my absence. Even the house itself seemed colder. Relatives offered chilly hugs, their eyes darting past my shoulder. My aunt, clutching a flute of champagne, eyed me with a sly smile. "Oh, Rachel, you always loved rules more than people." Her laughter rippled through a small circle, but no one disagreed. I smiled thinly, feeling every microaggression settle like dust on my skin. I caught Luke's gaze from across the room. He grinned, all charm and polished teeth. "Still trying to save everyone, sis?" he called out, loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. I held his stare. "Someone has to." He shrugged and turned away, disappearing into his adoring crowd. I drifted toward the windows, looking out at the garden my grandfather once tended. A memory flickered, his hand on my shoulder, his words heavy with trust. "You're the strong one, Rachel. Never let this family fall to ruin." The ache of his absence pressed against my chest. Tonight I was surrounded by family, yet more alone than ever. My phone vibrated, pulling me back. Zoe's name appeared on the screen. "Don't let them rewrite you," she urged softly, her voice travelling thousands of miles to hold me up. "The past doesn't get to decide who you are tonight." I closed my eyes and nodded, letting her words fill the cracks. The party raged on, the secrets thickened, and I realised I wasn't just here to attend, I was here to remember who I'd been before silence became survival. The party hummed with polished confidence, a sea of expensive suits, brittle laughter, clinking glasses. Everywhere I moved, the energy shifted just slightly, as if the air had learned to avoid me too. From the edge of the ballroom, I caught snippets of conversations not meant for me. A group of executives from Ford and Grant, our family's oldest business partners, laughed with my father over glasses of scotch. Their words grew hushed when I drew near, but I caught enough. Last quarter's numbers don't add up. New contracts, very little oversight. Don't ask too many questions around here, it's bad luck. I circled away, uneasy. It was the same scent as before, secrecy, money and danger, hidden under the perfume of power. I drifted to the study, half expecting to find childhood ghosts. Instead, I found Luke's laptop left open beside a half-empty bourbon glass. The screen glowed with spreadsheets and emails, projected earnings, transfers, names I didn't recognize. My heart thudded. Old habits kicked in. No one saw me slip in a flash drive. No one noticed the tremor in my hands as I copied files. Minutes ticking by as outside the music swelled. One document stood out. A signed agreement, the signature forged. My stomach twisted. The name at the bottom, Mr. Grant. I snapped quick photos with my phone, pulse pounding in my ears. A tap at the door made me freeze, but it was only my mother, her voice clipped, her eyes tired. "Rachel, come now, the toast is starting, don't make us wait." She turned away before I could answer, heels clicking down the hall. Back in the dining room, the world spun on, oblivious. Everyone raised their glasses for Luke, his ambition, his charm, his relentless drive. My name never left their lips. My chair was just an empty placeholder. I glanced down at my phone. Zoe had replied in seconds. "Send the originals. I'll run a check on the contracts. Trust your instincts." I exhaled, fingers trembling as I zipped the files and sent them with a note. "Just in case." She sent a heart emoji. It made me want to cry. But then another message appeared, this time less certain. "Rach, are you sure? This could destroy your family and your career. I'm scared for you. Maybe just walk away." My thumbs hovered over the screen. I wanted to type back, to beg her not to leave me alone in this. But no reply came. The bubble with Zoe's typing vanished. My chest tightened. For the first time tonight, I felt truly, terrifyingly alone. The clamour for photos began. "Come, Rachel, smile! We want a real family picture," my aunt chirped, her hand cold and hard on my shoulder. I forced my mouth to curve upward. In the flash, I felt like a cardboard cutout propped up for appearances, forever on the edge of someone else's happy memory. Afterward, I slipped out to the garden, seeking air. The night was heavy and scented with honeysuckle. I found Luke there, lit by the faint glow from the house, his profile all confidence and calculation. He didn't turn when I approached. "You shouldn't dig so deep, Rachel," he said, voice low, gaze fixed on the dark. I kept my distance. "You know what I found," he laughed softly. "You always had a thing for rules. Still do, I see." He turned, stepping closer. I caught the glint in his eyes, part threat, part plea. "Listen, if you make trouble tonight, I'll tell everyone what you did after college. I'll say you've been unstable for years. You're nothing without the family name. Cross me and you'll regret it." His words pressed in, sharp as glass. I let the silence stretch. "The truth never needed a last name," I said, my voice barely a whisper. A door opened behind us. My father called Luke inside. The threat lingered, heavy as smoke. I stood in the garden, shaking. The old shame surfaced. How easily I could be erased again. How every accusation would sound like a confession from my lips. For a long moment, I considered leaving. I pictured myself walking out the front door, bag in hand, vanishing into the night and never coming back. But then my phone buzzed. Zoe, again. "Check your email. Something big's coming." Hands trembling, I opened the message. Attached was a legal brief, pages and pages, outlining not just Luke's recent fraud, but a trail stretching back years, all the way to that first scandal. Names, dates, transactions, emails I hadn't seen. Zoe's message was short. "Mr. Grant's lawyer is at the party. I recognized him from the guest list. He needs to see this. Don't let them scare you." I looked up at the house, warm light pouring from every window, my family toasting to illusions. Inside, the music reached a crescendo. Someone called my name for another round of pictures. My mother smiled for the crowd, face frozen in perfect composure. I hesitated, fear and anger warring in my chest. Then I remembered my grandfather's hand on my shoulder, his voice steadier than mine had ever been. "You're the strong one, Rachel. Don't let anyone make you small." I squared my shoulders and walked back toward the light. I wasn't sure what would happen next. Maybe they'd turn on me again. Maybe they'd believe every lie Luke spun. Maybe I'd lose what little family I had left. But for the first time, the fear didn't matter as much as the truth. The door swung open, the noise swallowing me whole. My heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. The night air had thickened by the time we took our seats for dinner. Silverware shimmered against bone-white plates, laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings. The Ford family was in full performance mode, every gesture rehearsed, every smile practiced for the watching eyes of business partners and old friends. I watched it all, feeling oddly outside my own life, waiting for a cue that might never come. Then the MC's voice cut through the din. Before we close, we'd love to hear a few words from Rachel Ford, our esteemed eldest. Rachel, would you honour us? 100 faces turned my way. For a heartbeat, I wanted to shrink, but something inside me refused. I rose, smoothing the napkin on my lap, and walked to the centre of the room. My heels clicked, steady as a gavel. "Thank you," I began, voice calm. "It's been years since I've stood in a room like this. Family, friends, and so many new faces. I'm grateful to be here to celebrate Luke's success and all the bright hopes my parents have for the future of Ford and Grant." Luke's smile was fixed, but I saw his eyes flicker. I paused, feeling every gaze, the weight of history pressing in. If there's one thing our family taught me, it's that integrity isn't inherited. It's chosen, sometimes at a cost. A hush fell over the table. Even the servers stilled. "I believe in truth," I continued. "Not just because I'm a lawyer, but because I've seen what happens when it's ignored. Secrets rot families from the inside. I tried to protect us once by bringing uncomfortable things to light. Back then, I was told that silence was love." My mother's fork trembled. My father looked away. Luke's knuckles whitened on his glass. "But love isn't silence. Love is responsibility. It's holding each other to a standard, especially when no one's watching." I reached into my purse, hands steady, and pulled out the folder. Tonight I found evidence of forged signatures, fraudulent transfers, and broken trust, some of it involving people in this room. I let my gaze settle on Luke, then Mr. Grant. Gasps rippled through the guests. Someone stood, craning to see the papers. A few phones lit up beneath the tablecloths. "I'm not here to shame anyone," I said, my voice even, "but if you value this family, this company, you deserve the truth." Luke shot to his feet, knocking over his chair, his face twisted in outrage, voice booming over the stunned guests. "You can't believe this. She forged all of it. She's jealous, always has been. Ask her old firm in New York. She's the one under investigation for misconduct. She's trying to take me and all of us down out of spite." A nervous ripple of whispers moved through the room. Someone hissed, "Is that true?" Another guest frowned. "She always was a little intense." I felt the blood drain from my face. For a split second I wondered if I should run, if I'd lost everything for nothing. And then my phone buzzed. A single line from Zoe. "I sent the files directly to Mr. Grant's lawyer. They're verifying everything. You're not alone." Mr. Grant looked up from his phone, eyes wide. "Luke, these are real. You need to explain." But Mr. Grant's face had gone pale. He took the folder, scanning the documents with shaking hands. "Luke," he said, voice cold and clear, "is this true?" All eyes turned to my brother. The room held its breath. Luke sputtered, lost for words, sweat beading at his hairline. "Dad, tell them. Rachel's twisting everything." But my father remained silent. My mother looked as if she'd aged 10 years in a moment. Then, outside, a sound cut through the silence, a siren, sharp and insistent, drawing closer. Heads turned, guests murmured. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Luke's voice cracked. "You called the police on your own family." I met his gaze, unwavering. Justice finds its way, even when hidden behind family walls. A murmur rose, questions, doubts, blame ricocheting off the marble. Mr. Grant closed the folder, standing between Luke and the door. "We need answers, Luke, now." For the first time all night, I saw fear in my brother's eyes. I stepped back from the table, my hands suddenly light. No applause followed. No one moved to stop me. The silence for once belonged to me. I walked out, the chaos swelling behind me, the world I'd left behind finally breaking open. The night air was cold, clean, almost kind as I stepped outside. The chaos inside blurred into a muffled storm behind the walls as I stepped into the cold night air. Blue and red lights spun over the driveway, reflecting off every polished surface that had once meant home. Police moved with quiet authority, separating the curious from the guilty, Luke's desperate voice rising above the din, pleading, denying, bargaining. I watched from the shadows as my brother was escorted into the back of a squad car, his designer suit wrinkled, hair falling messily over panicked eyes. The very hands that had shaped our family legacy now trembled, clinging to the illusion for as long as possible. For a moment, I wondered if I should feel something. Triumph, relief, maybe even grief. But what I felt was only a strange, solemn clarity, the kind that comes after a storm has passed and left everything standing exactly as it was, only stripped bare. My parents stood in the entryway, arm in arm, my father's shoulders hunched, his gaze distant. My mother's lips parted as if to call my name, but no sound came out. For once their silence was not a weapon, but a shield, one they didn't know how to lower. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Zoe's voice flooded my ear, brimming with a pride that neither of my parents had ever managed. "It's done, Rach. The authorities have everything they need. You did the right thing." A long pause, then softer. "Sometimes justice is a whisper, not a shout. I hope you know that." A lump formed in my throat, but I forced my words out steady. "Thank you, Zoe. I never could have done this alone." "You didn't have to," she replied. "You never have to again." Inside, the party had collapsed. The facade, years in the making, crumbled in a matter of minutes. Guests slipped out quietly, avoiding my eyes, all of them suddenly remembering urgent business elsewhere. Only the staff remained, clearing away shattered glass and the remnants of carefully constructed illusions. As I stepped onto the cold stone, my mother rushed after me, her heels clicking on marble, breathless. She caught my wrist, eyes shining with tears she fought to hide. "Rachel, wait, please, I'm sorry, I thought I was protecting us, I didn't know how to choose." For a moment the anger in me broke, replaced by a sadness even deeper. I looked at her, really looked, then gently pulled my hand away. Maybe if we'd chosen the truth together, we wouldn't have lost so much. She pressed something into my palm, a small, worn photo from years ago, the four of us smiling under summer sun. I squeezed it, not trusting myself to speak, and kept walking toward the dawn. I looked at the dark windows, the echo of my childhood fading behind me. I thought of my grandfather, his strong hand on my shoulder, his voice deep and certain. "Build something that lasts, Rachel. Something they can't tear down, even if they never see it." For years, I had tried to build my place at their table, bending, breaking, swallowing pride and pain. Tonight, I realized I'd been building my own table all along. It just wasn't inside these walls. I whispered into the dawn, "I'm done asking for a seat at their table. I'll build my own." A new day crept over the horizon, gold and quiet. I walked toward my car, the gravel crunching beneath my shoes, every step lighter than the last. Behind me, the estate stood silent, stripped of its grandeur, but I carried something they could never take, my own truth. For years I thought losing my family would break me, but family isn't only blood. Maybe it's the people who believe you, who show up, even when you think all hope is gone. Tonight I lost the home I knew, but I found the courage to build my own, and maybe, just maybe, I'll never be truly alone again. The dawn behind me was silent, but I knew my story wouldn't end there, and maybe neither will yours. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones no one else sees. Sometimes the heaviest silence is the one that weighs between you and the people you once trusted most. I asked myself 1,000 times, what would you do when silence becomes betrayal? Would you dare to speak, even if it cost you everything you thought you needed? If you've ever stood alone with the truth, if you've ever felt invisible inside your own family, or if you've ever chosen to break the silence instead of breaking yourself, your courage is real. You're not alone. I want to hear from you. Share your story in the comments below. What moment changed you? When did you decide that enough was enough? If this story moved you, subscribe to Whispers of Revenge for more tales where truth fights to be heard. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to stay silent. Thank you for watching. Until next time, let your truth be louder than their comfort.